What could Korea and Italy have in common? We'll find out this week on Motoring 2003.
TSN's Motoring 2003 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. Oils fine-tuned for different engines. And Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
When a company's been around since 1944, it's hard to imagine that today it would still have to prove itself in the marketplace. But that's sort of the position Kia finds itself in. I mean, here's a company that's been importing cars into Canada just over 3 years ago. And I can't tell you how often people ask me, what do you think of those new Kias? Are they any good, or should we wait until they have enough time to get it right? Well, you know, I can understand that reaction when you consider the growing pains like Hyundai, Suzuki, and even Honda went through in those early days. Well, so far the Kia product has looked pretty good. In fact, we even picked the Sedona as our best new minivan for 2002. But just how big of a slice of the automotive pie does Kia really think it can get in today's current market? Well, that's one of the questions we're going to ask this week, and we're also going to meet the Sorento, a new sport utility that Kia thinks is going to surprise a lot of people, including the competition.
Kia came to Canada just in 1999, so just a short time ago. However, last year, in the calendar year of 2001, Kia sold 26,013 units. There is no limit to where we can go. We are going to grow the company. We're going to grow it fairly quickly. I think that the whole product line, with the Rio as an example and the Spectra, have done very well. Most recently, the Magentas. I think the whole product line has been well accepted on the car side. On the truck side, of course, we have the Sportage, and the sales of Sportage have been phenomenal in Canada. The Canadian consumer has accepted the product very quickly in quantities that were tough to supply at some times. But we see, I think, our product as being great value for Canadian consumers, be it cars or trucks. I, of course, went to Hyundai and was there for 10 years, and I moved over from Honda. So with the Honda product or the Japanese product, it took a long time for people to accept that product in. However, it was accepted well, and again, it's perception of the product. And I think it'll be a little bit easier for all of us at Kia to get the job done thanks to the job done by Hyundai.
The 2003 Sorento.
We see the Sorento as one of those flagship products. It's something, the styling is very distinctive. It doesn't look a lot like a lot of the other SUVs, very sporty. Sporty with luxurious styling as well. So we think this is the product that people are going to see and go, wow, what is that? Oh, it's a Kia. And that'll bring them into the showrooms. The Sorento will have 3 trim levels. The Sorento LX, which is a V6 four-wheel drive. The EX will add additional luxury functions, and the EX luxury package, which will add leather interior, and power moonroof.
I think everybody's competition. As you know, the segment is divided into kind of the smaller sport utilities and the intermediate sport utilities, like Mazda Tribute. There is the, I guess you would say, the Explorer, the Pathfinder, those types of vehicles. We're going right after those vehicles, and if you look at the spec sheet that we have given you today, you'll see very quickly we've got them beat hands down.
I think the next challenge is really to get from Kia to Kia, which stands for great value cars, and also some of our product names like the Rio, the Spectra, the Magentas, and the Sedona minivan.
We're excited. We have really good staff. We've got a really good dealer body. It won't be any problem at all. We're not just going to catch the competition. We're going to surpass them in volume. You just watch.
If you try to be hip, you're not hip. Now, there's a new car company in this country. They might be hip and probably don't even know why. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Every week I test a different car. We test everything of every conceivable stripe. SUVs, pickup trucks, sports cars, and even economy cars. And every now and again you get stuck with something like this and I say, why me? But this happens to be the M3, so I say, lucky me. When it comes to BMW, anything with an M in front of its model designation is worth getting worked up about, and the M3 convertible is no exception. Here it's the brawny engine that really gets you sweaty. Simply, it has to be one of the best inline sixes in the world. Using drive-by-wire and variable valve timing on both the intake and exhaust cams means it's technically proficient. It also has some serious numbers: 333 horsepower and 262 pounds-feet of torque. Playing with the valve timing on the intake side brings a broad torque curve that seems almost endless. Indeed, in time runs, I clocked a 0 to 100k run in about 5.5 seconds. Better still though, when you hit 100k and mat the gas, this thing turns into a seriously quick machine. For the brave, or foolish depending on your point of view, the M3 will run full tilt to its electronically governed top speed of 250 kilometers an hour. The highlight of this car, M3 benefits aside, is down to this sequential M gearbox. Now beneath the car you've got a traditional 6-speed manual gearbox, but inside there is no clutch pedal. Rather what you've got is two different modes: a fully automatic mode where the car looks after itself, or the more fun sequential mode. When you select sequential, you can upshift and downshift using this lever or these two steering wheel mounted F1-like paddles. The advantage is twofold. You get blinding speed because there's no power sapping torque converter, and when you do shift, the upshift is so quick you get a minimal interruption in power to the rear wheels. You gotta love it. When it comes to handling, the M3 convertible is as good as anything offered. In spite of its drop-top configuration, the body is structurally strong, meaning no body flex whatsoever. This allows the suspension to do its thing properly. The settings are, however, taut, and so there is little, if any, body roll. Through the pylons, it proved to be fast, flat, and certainly unflustered. The bonus is the ride quality will not beat you up on the daily commute. The brakes follow this theme. Large rotors at each corner are controlled by an advanced anti-lock system. Dropping the anchors saw the car pull to a halt in just 101 feet from 80k. The ABS also works hand in hand with the dynamic stability control system. Given the power, this thing can be likened, well, to an electronic guardian angel. I've saved the best bit of this transmission for last, and it really is aimed at the inner racer and any car enthusiast. After you punch a couple of buttons, one there, and one there, you now have a replicated version of BMW's Formula One launch control. You simply hold the gear lever forward, mat the gas pedal, it holds the engine at 2000 RPM, but when you let go, look out. Inside, the layout is all business. An attractive dash with large logical dials takes center stage, with the center stack housing the audio and climate controls. Fortunately, there are redundant radio controls on the steering wheel. This allows you to keep your hands on the wheel and closer to the paddle shifters. The M3 convertible is a true four-seater. Up front, the heavily bolstered seats keep you planted when the going gets fast, while the rear seats bring a surprising amount of legroom. It's here where you'll find one of the M3's few shortcomings. Unless you secure the rear seat belts in two special clips when not in use, they really do flap annoyingly in the proverbial breeze. I'm glad to report that the M3 is alive and more than capable of kicking just about any serious automotive butt. Indeed, especially when equipped with the SMG. Be warned though, first impressions are not that favourable. You've got to learn how to use it, which means a longer than usual test drive if you're thinking about this car. A twisty road, a steely nerve, and a couple of hours of fun, and you'll be convinced that this gearbox is as good as it gets.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns underslung spare tires. If you have a pickup van or sport utility, you probably have one of these underslung spare tires. These are great things because they save you a lot of space, cargo space in the vehicle by getting that seldom used spare tire out of the way. But once in a blue moon when you need that tire, you want it to be accessible, serviceable, and you want it to be safe under there as well. The problem with these things is they sit under there unused and they corrode. What I suggest that you do is lower this retractor down at least once a year and clean out the wheel and tire. There's all kinds of grit and gravel that gets in there, but most importantly, a lot of road salt gets in there and sits in the tire. Also, the bottom 6 or 8 inches of the cable is prone to corrosion, and eventually it'll corrode the strands of the cable so badly it'll break and drop the spare tire somewhere, which is obviously a very unsafe condition, and you'll lose your spare tire. So at least once a year, drop this thing down. I suggest you do it in the springtime to get rid of that winter road salt. Drop it down, clean the wheel and tire out, lubricate the cable with oil or grease, clean the grit out of the tire, and put it back together. And it's a good dry run for that one time when you need to put on your spare tire. That's your Midas tip of the week.
I like the M80. I think it's really neat. It really addresses a vehicle that is missing in that segment, which is an entry-level pickup truck that does it all. As we like to say, it goes from snow to surf.
What we have here today is the Viper Club of Ontario, and through our schools they're learning to control these powerful beasts a lot better than what they can. So we're taking them from basically the grade 8 education they get when they get their licenses up to a college level of education for driving. And with the extra torque and the extra power these vehicles have, these drivers need the extra education. But then again, every driver should have that extra education too.
The owner are generally they are very car enthusiasts people. They are like myself, grew up with cars from the early 60s on and fell in love with the car, and we had a passion toward this muscle car.
Vipers come in the RT10, they come in the GTS, and they come in the ACR. Davidson Dodge was nice enough to bring out an ACR for me to use today, and that one's the more or less the top of the line one. That's the one where they've got the boy racer, they've tightened up the suspension, they get a little extra boost in the power, and it's for those who want to go on into competitions like solo, etc. So they all got the V10 power plant in them, which is putting out roughly around, for the new ones, somewhere around 500 horsepower. Now some of these owners have actually done a little tweaking to them and got them up a little higher than that. The yellow one we had today, it's been slightly, slightly sort of a loose term, it's been heavily modified. And to quote the owner, he's putting out close to 620 horsepower at the rear wheels. So he's done quite a bit of work with it. He's tweaked the suspension, and you can see he's got the racer type wing on the back. I mean, it doesn't do a lot for him on the street, but it sure looks mean. You having fun? Oh, these things are a tremendous amount of fun to drive. So well balanced, so well designed. They do what you want them to do. You can get them to understeer, oversteer. You can steer with the throttle. They're a tremendous amount of fun.
Keeps you young, huh?
Oh, sure does. It sure does. What we've done today is invited the public out, and everybody wants to be in a Viper. So we've invited them out and saying, if you give us a donation to Children's Wish Foundation, we'll be happy to take you for one of those once-in-a-lifetime ride around our track in a Viper. And they're just thrilled to death to be out there and in that passenger seat and feeling what the Viper can and cannot do.
You a little nervous?
Yeah.
You want them to drive fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
This car is adored by children, so this is one reason we chose the Children's Wish Foundation to be recipient of the charity drive of today's event.
Up until now, Kia's only sport utility has been the Sportage, but the company will be discontinuing sales at the end of 2002. But Kia wants to make it perfectly clear the new Sorento is not a replacement for the Sportage. Kia has plans of bringing back another vehicle to fill that subcompact sport utility segment. All right, now let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Oh, great, Brad. Another sport utility, just what we need, eh? Anyhow, this week I want to talk about tire failures. I was getting a load of scrap tires ready to go to the recycling place, loading up the pickup the other day, and I separated out these two tires, which were tires I changed on customers' cars on the side of the highway this past summer. And I thought they'd be kind of interesting for you to see because they were completely avoidable tire failures. Now, not every tire failure is avoidable. You could have 4 brand new tires on your car, properly inflated with the wheels properly aligned, and be going down the road, and all of a sudden a piece of debris pops out from underneath another vehicle. You run over it, cut the tire down, and you've ruined a perfectly good tire. You'll never avoid that. But these 2 instances of failure were totally avoidable, and let me show you why. Now, you've probably already figured out that the driver of this car was not checking their tires. These were completely bald, and this particular tire failed because it wore completely through all the cords here. You can see the steel cords and you can see the fabric cords here as well, and there's where the tire deflated right there. But they continued to drive on this tire even after it had deflated until this side of it just completely disintegrated. So this was a case of just never having a look at the tires. I took these off the rear wheels of a Volvo 850 that was in real good shape, and there was no reason why these tires shouldn't have been checked and replaced much sooner. It was just a case of the motorist not being aware of what the tires were like on that vehicle, and that's a really dangerous situation. Now, this other tire came off the rear wheels of a heavily loaded pickup truck, and it's what we call a P-metric tire. If you look at the part number of this tire, it's a P2057514. P meaning passenger car. It's a passenger car tire that was on the rear of a loaded pickup truck on the highway, high speeds on a really hot day, and that's a recipe for disaster. An overloaded and or underinflated tire on a hot day is going to fail sooner or later, and sooner is what happened. He got on the highway for 15-20 minutes and this tire just disintegrated. So make sure that you've got somebody checking the tires on your vehicle on a regular basis. You want to check them with a tread depth gauge to make sure that there's adequate tread depth. When they get down to 3/32, they're considered worn out. A brand new tire for a passenger car will have 10 or 11/32 tread depth when it's new. If it's a light truck tire, it could have anywhere from 13 to 15 or even 16/32 of tread depth. In any case, a good tire man can spot these problems well before they cause you a problem on the highway. And I suggest that you check your tires on a regular basis and be responsible for your own tire pressure. Have a tire gauge in the car and check them at least once a month. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2003.
For more information on past and future episodes of Motoring, log on to the Motoring website at motoringtv.com, where you can email your suggestions, questions, and comments, which are always welcome. That's motoringtv.com.
A few Januaries ago at the Montreal Auto Show, Mitsubishi had a huge display. Cars and SUVs singing and dancing. They were going to set up shop in this country, and they wanted us to know about it. 6 weeks later at the Toronto show, not a trace. They decided to pull the plug. Now, they don't tell me the exact reasons for this. I mean, you'd think with my unerring instinct for knowing exactly what the market is not going to do, they'd keep me in the loop. But I did hear one story that the Mitsui Bank in Japan, a Mitsubishi shareholder, told them, we're not going to finance this. It's not going to happen. They figured that Mazda and Nissan, 2 very strong car companies in this country, weren't doing very well. Mitsubishi was having labor difficulties at their plant in the States. They thought the time just isn't right. Well, that was then. This is now. Mitsubishi is back with a vengeance. Now, the first people Mitsubishi had to convince to join this party were the car dealers. Now, dealers are always whining about how tough the business is. We can't make money, yada, yada, yada. And those $1,500 Armani suits, they come from where exactly? Never mind. The dealers are signed up. I mean, these guys have to invest a lot of money. If they think it'll go, it'll probably go. The market's probably no easier than it was. I mean, Mazda and Nissan are doing well now. Mitsubishi has a full line, but they're going to have to succeed with their small car, the Lancer, going up against Civic, Corolla, Protege, Sentra, Cavalier, Focus. It's not going to be easy. Mitsubishi also has to establish a brand name. A lot of Canadians, for some reason, pronounce it Mitsubishi. And most Canadians, if they know the name at all, think it's a VCR. But they do have one ace in the hole, and that's kids. Every kid who's played an Xbox or Game Boy video game, they know exactly what a Lancer Evolution 7 is because they play with them every day. The Paris-Dakar Rally Raid games, Mitsubishi Pajero, that's going to be in Ontario here in Canada. So Mitsubishi does very well with young people in the States, and everybody wants to get those young people. Maybe Mitsubishi might just have a chance. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Off the top of the program, I asked you what Korea and Italy have in common. Well, Kia's new sport utility, the Sorento, is named after an Italian city, although in Italy, the city is spelt with 2 R's. Okay, the bottom line on this new vehicle, well, all the journalists were impressed with not only the exterior styling, but also the quality of the interior. The question now is the durability of the nuts and bolts. This vehicle comes with a 5-year, 100,000 kilometer comprehensive warranty that includes the powertrain. That aside, Kia is convinced that this new Sorento is about to take a chunk out of some major competition. Time will tell. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
You know, there was always something missing with Nissan. You didn't really know what they stood for. So I think that from an image standpoint, yes, it's an important car for them.
TSN's Motoring 2003 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. Oil's fine-tuned for different engines. And Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.